is Arlene Nagtalon, and I use she, her pronouns.
Do I take questions too, or?
No, we got you.
Okay, so first question is, how do you define culture and what does KP's culture mean to you?
I define culture as something that is ever changing. It's the connections to traditions that we all share. And as I mentioned before, it's something that can evolve, change, and grow over time, adapt to changing times. As for KP's culture, I believe that it is one that is very community oriented. Not only are we all students of UC San Diego, but a majority of us are of Filipino descent. And because of our shared identities as UCSD students and as Filipinos, we share that culture just coming from similar backgrounds and shared lived experiences.
Second question, as cultural facilitator, you have the opportunity to educate the space on any topic that is relevant to Filipino culture. What topics would you focus on and how would you promote this education of cultural knowledge and awareness, such as workshops, cultural corners, presentations, or discussions?
As cultural facilitator, I believe that I have a lot of flexibility in what it is that I want to promote, ideas I want to share. Some topics I want to focus on are ethnomedicine, which is essentially basically everything else that doesn't fall into the Western medicine type of category. So when you think of, hospitals, medicine, doctors, lab coats, it's basically holistic healing that's more founded in nature and natural aspects. So when you think of like guava leaf tea, using nature and what resources it provides to help nurture us, heal us, I have a guava tree in my backyard, and I think something that would be cool is an immersive experience where we could, have samples of guava tea leaf tree together, or just be in community together that way. I could also host book clubs with internship with the wider KP audience and space, so we can talk about different authors that maybe folks haven't heard before and learn topics that way. In regards to what PCC is focusing on this year, I think storytelling corners could be really cool too, where we have say we share stories or fables that we get from online and talk about what themes it focuses on and why it's important to know about these things, similar to how we all know what the tortoise and the hare is. I think more people would want to know more about the Carabao story that's briefly mentioned at the start of PCC, and just have a much more immersive experience that doesn't just rely on workshops, but one that takes folks even outside of this KP bubble, outside of the La Jolla bubble, and into the broader San Diego community, because I think that so many more experiences and learning opportunities can be found outside of what we're already comfortable in.
So, third question is, what is cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation?
So, cultural appropriation might be mistaken for cultural appreciation, but they're two very distinct things. When it comes to cultural appropriation, my mind directly thinks of wearing traditional clothing or attire as a costume. You have Native American indigenous wear being worn for Halloween costumes, kimonos, and that sort of thing. Whereas cultural appreciation is when people of that culture distinctly say that it's okay for you to say or do certain things to show your solidarity for them. One way that is applicable to now is how people have keffiyehs around them to show their solidarity with the Palestinian people. And I think it's beautiful because it's something that the Palestinians have said that, explicitly to show their support for their cause, and it's one that people are adhering to. So as long as those boundaries are appreciated in that way and there's that mutual trust being built, then cultural appreciation is something we should all aspire for.
So your next question is, how would you deal with conflict in a board space, knowing that you would have to manage both professional and personal relationships on board?
To manage personal and professional relationships, even amidst conflict, I would do my best to keep them within separate spaces and not let what happens in personal spheres impact my professional sphere. One way I would do this is by explicitly mentioning to the other person, say I'm having a conflict with, that, as folks within the board space, we shouldn't let whatever issue we're having impede our work ethic, and to just be open and transparent with them in appropriate times and settings. I know that there are different instances where things can be said out of context, especially via digital communication, which is why it's important that talking in person and ensuring that what we say to one another is kept respectful, but also constructive, so that we're able to hear from the other's perspective, and then just moving forward, how can we improve and work together so that this conflict doesn't happen again in the future.
So you have to work closely with the rest of your pillar, which is mainly the COCOs. So how would you plan on communicating with them effectively? What steps would you take to be proactive with your pillar?
To communicate with the other COCOs, I would establish not only a direct method of communication, whether it be, Instagram, text, etc., but I'd ensure that we meet on a consistent basis that can continue to be flexible with changing schedules. So, for example, I would, meet up with the COCOs and say, hey, what times work best to meet with you for this quarter? And then we would say what times we're free, and whether or not we can see this is something that works. I'd also ensure what times are, say, like your business hours, so like from the hours of it could be like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. we can talk about certain things relating to KP, but outside of those hours, we want to maintain that work-life balance, so that we're not always constantly thinking about professional things, but also just focusing on our own personal lives. So just as long as we're open, communicative, and transparent with our availability, I'm sure that we'd be able to maintain a good method of contact for the duration of the school year.
Okay, so you answered the 5 questions. You have time, or would you be okay with answering if you want?
Yes, I would be.
So your position may require a lot of work and time, such as leading the creation of the Filipino cultural class or helping with cultural events with different capacities, from small cultural corners to PCC. So in these kinds of situations, how would you find a balance between board and your other responsibilities?
To find balance with board and my other responsibilities, I would ensure that first and foremost, I'm not overfilling my plate of responsibilities. I know that outside of board, I'm also not just, a full-time student here at UCSD. I'm also an ate at home, and I'm a commuter. So I know that my time is limited when I spend it here on campus. So to ensure that I'm able to not spread myself too thin, I would make it explicitly clear to both, board, my internship class, and my COCOs what it is that I'd be able to handle and not handle, so that I'm not over-promising something and under-delivering. I'd want to ensure that whatever it is I'm able to contribute, I'm able to do it at the fullest of my capacities, so that I'm not letting down, not just myself, but others who expect things of me.
So those are all the questions that I have for you. Do you have any questions for us?
Yes, I have a question for you specifically. I guess for whoever holds your position, what is something that you'd want to see implemented in the future, and why?
I think the biggest thing that I would want implemented as of recently is to make PCC into the theater class. I did end up talking with somebody who has experience working with the students who were in charge of it in previous years, and I think that it would be really beneficial since PCC is a huge, huge cultural event that spans over an entire year, and I think that it's deserving of the people involved to get the credit that they deserve for spending all that time. And it's not only culturally important, but it's also just very convenient and supportive of the PCC space, since they'll be able to have the space that they need to work, and it would give a lot more incentive for people to actually show up to rehearsals, which I know has been a problem in the past. So I would definitely say, and I would also like to continue the ethnic class too, but I am aware that doing both and handling both would be a lot of work logistically, and it's a lot to do with everything behind the scenes, just setting it up. So I would say those two things would definitely be higher on the priority list if I were to do culture facilitator again. But in terms of prioritizing one or the other, I think that I would personally prioritize PCC turning into a class, because I think it also, if it's a class, then you would be able to do a bit then the COCOs, with the help of the culture facilitator, if they do decide to do it together, I think it would be a great opportunity to actually educate the space more on the cultural significance of the PCC dances, which is a huge part of PCC overall.
For sure. Thank you. I do have time for one more question, or yeah, okay. I guess this question is open to any of you willing to answer, but I feel like, or I believe that one of my strengths is being a connector, bridging the KP space to the broader San Diego community. And I'm wondering, in what ways would you want to see that happen, with KP having a broader impact for the Filipino community we have here in San Diego?
Like, how would we want it to happen?
Or I guess what ideas do you, or to create those connections, what would you want to see?
Personally, being from San Diego, I know that there are a lot of Filipino spaces and communities other than like here. You know, there's like Saka, there's House of Philippines, like maybe having maybe events in collaboration with that, something like that.
I think in terms of like your specific branch though, there's a good amount of like very specific like cultural and like cultural performance groups around San Diego, like not just in schools. Like I don't know what it's called. It's like it's not Samahan, it's something else.
Pasaka?
Huh?
Pasaka?
Yeah, I think it's that. But I think like making connections with them and being able to collaborate with them a bit more would be cool. Just to like bring in a broader perspective of people who actually have grown up with it their entire lives and who like specialize in